What's up, folks? This is the Lil Guillotine podcast, episode 12. I'm Lil Guillotine, and you are?
I'm Brian Ward.
Brian Ward's in the house.
And I'm Brad LeBaron.
Brad LeBaron.
Revolover Audio up in here.
You were just talking about the Chekhov guy who played Chekhov in the Star Trek and how he died from a car crash. I didn't realize that he was dead.
Yeah, he died. It was from like a manufacturer defect thing. So it was like car slipped into neutral when he was in front of it, and it crashed into him. And there was a big lawsuit, and there was a lot of people got recalls and payouts and stuff. But his last movie though was a really, really cool movie about him being in a punk band and playing in a really random deep South country punk thing that was full of Nazis and neo-Nazis, and they play Nazis Fuck Off by Dead Kennedys.
Right on.
Yeah.
So Brian, we're kind of like freeform-ish a little bit, although
Okay.
me and Brad have like subjects that we've written down that we'd like to bring up.
Cool.
But yeah, so me, Brian, and Brad all know each other from the International Socialist Organization here in Madison, which of course no longer exists. Folks don't know. And I bring that up because our comrade Dave Zirin was just on Democracy Now! This morning. Did you catch that?
I did not, but I usually listen to it. I'll listen to it tomorrow morning, like when I'm getting ready. So
I got you.
Because he was on talking about Kobe Bryant, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Who Dave Zirin's also used to be in the ISO.
Yep. I was in DC with him.
Okay.
Hung out with him a lot back in the
bet.
day.
Yeah.
Good guy.
And I really like how graceful he was in bringing up, the Kobe Bryant's, the rape allegations that happened in 2003. Probably way more than I just did right now because I just went right into it.
Yeah.
But he brings up that it has to be brought up because it was like not just rape allegations, but the survivor ended up like not coming to testify, and then they got the charges dropped, and then there was like
There was a settlement.
There was a settlement as well, right, in civil court. And then just like how in Colorado they had to change their laws based on this case because of sort of how vicious Kobe's lawyers were to the survivor. As far as I don't know the details, but yeah, rip Kobe though. That definitely was a shock that Kobe.
That was a huge
passed.
shock. Yeah, and
totally.
It was a real tragedy because obviously dying with his daughter and then some close family friends and their kids.
There was more than one kid.
There was. I think it was
like 9 people or something like that.
There was 9 people, but apparently there was another family friend, and I think maybe just one kid, like 2 couple and their kid. I could be wrong on that, but there was more. Yeah, it was really tragic. Mostly we're hearing about Kobe and his daughter, of course, because they're the most famous.
But it's interesting though. It's like this is what happens when like people die. It's like we then whitewash things that happened in the past. You know what I mean? Like, like as a growing up basketball player, played basketball, loved basketball. Wasn't a huge Kobe fan, but it definitely influenced me a lot. But can't like forget. It's like, fuck the shit that he did. It's like and like you kind of mentioned about like the vicious attacks on the survivor of that. And so it's just interesting. Like you listen to anything, it's just like barely even bring it up. As if it like was.
I heard it from Democracy Now! Today. They were talking about it, and they started with the listing off who it happened to, all the people involved, and then brought up the rape allegations after that. But it's like it's something between obviously fans and people and family mourning and reconciling with the truth too at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I think that some places have done a good job at that. I guess tasteful job, if that's the word for it. But but we can't it's important not to let people's legacies just be, crystal clean just because of the fact that they've passed. I mean, that's not fair to the survivors.
Yeah.
This is a subject that so I'm in a General Defense Committee, and we do these bi-weekly readings, and we're talking about like imperialism starts at home, and we're talking about like sexual assault and in leftist organizations particularly. And it's something like when you have a prison abolitionist perspective, you do have to be like I think it's a trend on the left to like sort of be unforgiving of sexual assault, and it is heinous as fuck and fucked up. But then again, it's like if you are for like prison abolition and sort of for restorative justice, you do have to accept the fact that they can be held accountable to the community and forgiven. So it's like,
well, because they keep on living. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like after they've committed this horrible act or whatever, they are still alive and in the system. So
in communities too.
And ideally we can help rehabilitate people. You know what I mean? Not just which is not what we do with our current prison system. But yeah.
I mean, that's a big question. Like how do you go beyond that? Rather than just being punitive. And actually have a restorative. In a just society where people fuck up, people do shit, and then like how do you move on from that in a way that is both fair to the survivor, but also a person that could maybe move on past that in a constructive way in society.
Yeah.
Like real justice, and as opposed to being removed from the community that they should be being held accountable to, which is what imprisonment does. It's like completely erases the possibility of any justice happening to the community, any accountability, any harm being like reconciled when you completely remove them from communities.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what your the group you were a part of. You're talking about something in the home.
Well, it's General Defense Committee, but the readings was about like imperialism starts at home.
Yeah. And I think that's part of that. That might be part of that. I obviously haven't looked into that, but that's like one of those things where like you're just taught that when someone does something bad, they go to this place, and that's the end of the thought process. And that's one of those things that definitely starts in the home. That's something that like you learn from either your parents or your whatever people in authority that you grew up with.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Towards prison abolition. So, okay, I'm going to do some introductions now that it's 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Lil Guillotine, and I said that already, but I'm in the Industrial Workers of the World. We said this earlier, but it wasn't for the audio recording. So anyways, I'm in Industrial Workers of the World. I'm in Democratic Socialists of America in Madison here, and I'm in the General Defense Committee. I'm in the Free the 350 Bail Fund. And then we have Brian Ward. Do you want me to say it, or do you want to say it?
I can say it if you want.
You say it.
Yeah, sure. I'm Brian Ward, and I'm also a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, also a recent member of the Red Nation, which is a Indigenous liberation organization that is revolutionary socialist, that is based in the Southwest. Yeah. And I'm a teacher.
Yeah, right.
Oh, of course. I'm Brad LeBaron. I'm a former ISO. I've done some work with the IWW and I've been to a few, one or two DSA meetings, but mostly at this point I'm kind of politically freelance and trying to do my activism from my studio here,
which is Revolover Audio.
Yeah. Revolover Audio. Yeah.
Audio.
With an O, there's an O in there, extra O. Yeah. Very confusing. But we all met though at the. Well, I don't know if you two met at the ISO, but I definitely met you two at the ISO.
Yep.
So yeah, that's how. I think that what was it? The first time me and you started talking, we went out to the bars afterwards and stuff, and got to know each other. And yeah, I learned really quickly that you guys were dope people. So
that's great. And of course, the ISO no longer exists.
No.
So yeah, that was one of my questions. Actually, was about the is we were in the ISO, and then we're both now in the Democrat. Me and Brian are in the Democratic Socialists of America, and then so like. I have this one song. It's called "Democrats Are the Graveyard." It's like Democrats are the graveyard. They won't save you now. Capitalists not saviors. Don't get a change somehow. And then I just go on and on and on in the whole song and really rip into like electoralism and the electoralism. Then like so then I don't know. Do you feel any conflicts internally about like you're very very obviously. Because when you're in the ISO, you have a lot of politics that you share pretty similarly. So yeah, do you feel any conflicts with like being in the DSA and like not being that down with Democrats? Would you say you're not down with Democrats?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, that hasn't really changed. I mean, I will say, I'm more open to Bernie these days, but I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
I wouldn't say that I'm a Bernie person, but more open than I probably was. But yeah, I mean. I don't feel super conflict because to me, when one of the reasons why I joined the DSA, and still being a revolutionary, is like it just seems to me like a big tent coalition of socialists of all stripes. And yeah, there are people in the DSA that are like, we got to just push the Democrats to the left. But then there are people who like are further left than me, or like they're anarchists. I mean, in the DSA, so it's like. Which is a cool development for the United States. It's just like, what is that? What is that local? I think it depends, the thing is it's so decentralized too, man. It's like depends on where you're at. Like I hear things about what different chapters are doing compared to what's happening here. And it's just like which is like to me like good because it's organic and that's like developing something. But there will be, to me, like there'll be at some point there needs to be like different formations, probably within the DSA, at least and that's already happening of some sort. We don't see it much here in Madison, but yeah.
Yeah, what is is it called renewification or something like that? Do you know any of the names?
I don't. I mean, I know that. There's some other factions that or whatever they call themselves. I'm not sure what they call themselves.
A couple of communist factions, and there's the Libertarian Socialist Caucus, which is like the anarchist like formation inside, which we don't have in Madison. Although I'm personally identify as an anarchist, and I'm in the DSA.
I mean, it says something like here, like just like our ideas here. We're in the DSA, together, and that's cool.
Well, yeah, because I think that like anarchists have been allies with different leftist groups in the past, and it's kind of again like the term socialism. It's one of those terms that's kind of been. Kind of poo-pooed and frowned upon, and like kind of like, it was like, oh, you think of anarchists, you think of punk rock or something, But yeah, no, it's cool to see, kind of a little bit of anarchy kind of rising up in a real legitimate way.
I had a comrade ask me just the other night about when I think of anarchism, I think of like no organization whatsoever. But there's all sorts of flavors of anarchism, including like platformist anarchists who very much believe that organization is the central, tool for overcoming the capitalist state, overthrowing the capitalist state, getting rid of it. But then there's just critiques of hierarchy that happen, and I was really, really impressed in the DSA by like how horizontal it is compared to, I would say, compared to the International Socialist Organization.
Totally, absolutely.
I was like, wow, this is really dope.
Yeah.
And then also, I just wanted to like, I was also holding off on joining forever because of, its association with electoralism that you see a lot of places, but then. I just saw them everywhere in movements in Madison. Like, they're doing no cops in schools. They're doing derail. They're trying to stop the jail. They're like down with this free meal shit, and they're just doing so much shit everywhere. Where it's like, and like the electoral stuff, at least here in Madison, is a very small smidgen of what goes down in the DSA.
Well, yeah, I remember like later in like my ISO career or whatever, if you want to call it that. I don't know what you call it. But
do you have a stat card?
I do have the card somewhere. But I remember running into a lot of just DSA folks randomly, just all sorts of shit. Like, right around when Bernie was picking up, that's what I think reinvigorated that, right?
Yeah.
Because it existed before.
The Bernie, totally. I mean, DSA has been around for a while, but the Bernie stuff, amplified it like crazy.
But I remember I saw some people at like Socialism, that were involved with the DSA, and they had great things to say, great discussion to have, So. Yeah, it's good that it's good that especially that they're around in Madison, because after the ISO fell apart for reasons everyone knows, there was, I'm sure, a lot of people that needed something to do.
Well, and they were. Right? I mean, the DSA is so open. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I joined as well, is because it's just like it wasn't like oh, fuck, you're in the ISO, you can't join. They were just like, no, come on. And then part of that was because we built relationships with some of the folks in it, like, oh yeah, we want you to join if you want to join. It's like, cool.
yeah. Well, that was one of my one of the things that I never really I guess I don't know, connected with the ISO was like the perspective on socialist alternative, kind of the unspoken rivalry. It felt like, because I was of the mindset like, oh well, I mean, they're like, they're socialists, we're socialists, let's hang out. I wasn't thinking much into it, but it did seem like there was kind of a not wanting to do that. You know what I mean? But. Yeah, no, like DSA is a very open vibe.
Totally, yeah.
My little doggy,
look at that
doggy in the
doggy
background.
Dream. Doggy.
Is that they're sleeping?
Yeah,
that's Apollo chirping in the background. Chasing some rabbits. He wanted to chime in too. He's dreaming of revolution.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah.
So what is this hat? This is the Great Lakes?
This is Lake Superior. This was actually made by a Ojibwe artist up in Duluth.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is wild rice here, which is
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go up there a lot too. Lake Superior is awesome. It's a great place.
Nice. So that brings up like the Line 5 stuff. Then.
Line 5, Line 3, Line
camp.
all of it. Yeah.
There's a camp up there still, right, in Duluth area, or
so Line 3 is the one that's coming from the tar sands.
Right?
All right. Yeah, that's so they're both part of Enbridge. So those who don't know, Enbridge is like a large Canadian-based company that pumps through pipelines. We think just about some selective pipelines in the United States, but it's crisscrossing Canada constantly. We talk about the friendly neighbors to the north. They're so great. They're doing such great things. Okay, maybe on some things, but they're still pushing through pipelines through indigenous lands.
They're implicit.
And like the tar sands is in Canada. And so Line 3 is coming down from the tar sands to Superior, Wisconsin, and then Line 5 is the one that then will go from Superior all the way through the UP and down to Detroit. And like the thing is, these are all existing pipelines. They're all existing. They're just redoing them for tar sands, which are super dirty, and like the current pipelines wouldn't be able to hold that type of oil.
Plus the Line 5 has there's like a limited amount of time that pipeline can really be there, because it has a river that is meandering and getting closer and closer to the pipeline every year.
Yeah.
And like it's only a matter of time before that pipeline's exposed, and then it is a hazard to the river right there.
Even though it's already a hazard.
Well, it's a hazard. Yeah, more so.
More apparent.
Yeah. So it's like, they didn't renew the lease for good reason, and like that they need to.
And you're referring to the Bad River.
The Bad River. Pipe 5.
Yeah.
But there's a very very legitimate reason that they're like, no, this is this is a river. This is so important,
I used to track like oil spills when I was trying to start a renewable energy company. And yeah, it was just like astounding how much it really happens. Just doesn't get reported on.
Oh my God!
Like oil spills, like multiple times weekly, in the thousands of gallons of crude here and there, everywhere.
Yeah,
it had to stop.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when.
Yeah,
because I saw one article that was just a list of like all the articles in the past like 2 years about oil spills and like how little. Yeah, there was so many articles.
It's just little.
It was ridiculous.
Publications that are reporting on it. Not getting picked up.
Maybe local stuff or I don't know, but like it was at the time shocking to me how many of those there were just in 2 years. You know,
unsustainable.
So it's
bullshit.
not if, it's when.
Yeah.
What about the one that? So we're in Madison, Wisconsin, and folks don't know. What about the one that runs through like was it right east of Dane County or something like that?
It's like was it line 66?
66.
Yeah.
Right.
So the whole
that's suspicious.
So the whole thing is line 3 is like this linchpin of some sort. You know, it's because it's like they're redoing line 3 in order to allow tar sands oil to come down. And then, what people are worried about is once they do that, is that going to spark like, hey, we need to redo all these pipelines here because we're going to keep on bringing tar sands, which is the dirtiest oil out there, through all these different ones. And then, of course, without even discussing treaty rights or indigenous sovereignty of some sort. That's like that. I mean, that's those are the main resistors to a lot of this is indigenous folks who have been fighting this shit for a long time. Yeah.
It's the only recourse they have, is to like, it seems to be the only recourse they have is to protest it. And that's
even though they have plenty of legal means to it, it's like that's the thing. It's like these if you live in northern Wisconsin or northern Minnesota, it's like you live there because there's a treaty signed. If you're non-indigenous, you live there because Ojibwe ceded land in order to have access to fishing and hunting rights and wild rice access, and that's the ultimate argument is that if this is going to affect their access to get wild rice, which is sacred to the Ojibwe, hunting, fishing, all that stuff. It's like it's going to like a spill would affect that obviously. And so that's a legal recourse right there. There's like four different treaties that line northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and northern Minnesota right now.
Yeah. And just to bring up a different example that we talked about a little before the recording. In 93 in Montana, there was a situation where the pipeline, it was a Yellowstone Pipeline Company, their lease expired for the land, and they did not renew the lease, and they had to transport gas by truck because it was dangerous, and they weren't allowed to do that. So like there is a legal precedence there, that hopefully, people can remember. Obviously they didn't in Standing Rock, but, it's something though that like there's only, there's probably not that many like wins like that, but like, like there's, we should be doing shit. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, stopping the trucks too, right?
Yeah, obviously getting not like whether it's trucks or nothing shouldn't be. We shouldn't be on fossil fuels.
But I feel you though.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
No.
That's a win.
I agree.
Yeah. So the line 66 that's coming through to the east of Dane County, which is just like an hour or something away from here in Madison.
Yeah.
Am I right in like there's like some pumping station that like they're gonna have to redo or planning on redoing shortly?
Because
near
line
future?
66 already exists.
Yeah.
It's just like matter if they would redo it. I actually don't know if there's like the pumping center.
I thought I remember that like they were trying to go through county or city government to get in, like they denied them, so they're doing some other bullshit. Oh, that reminds me now.
Yeah, they're real sketchy, those guys.
Yes, they are. And that reminds me of our Democrat leader in Wisconsin, Tony Evers.
Yes,
and his
Let's
bullshit.
Bring him into this
yeah,
story,
because the Republicans, controlled legislature here in Wisconsin, passed this law where if you protest on oil company land, it's like a felony, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, Tony Evers had the opportunity to veto such a shitty ass environment wrecking bill, but did not.
I mean, and this is a copycat bill of what went through in North Dakota, what's gone in through South Dakota, because these are where pipelines are going through, and this is ultimately the thing. They want pipelines go through places that are quote unquote no one cares about. There's not many people or whatever, and that's how they're able to get through some of this stuff. But the resistance obviously has kind of persisted, in that historical tradition against settler colonialism and everything. It's it's all along the same line, It's no pun intended.
Well, and you never hear about pipelines really, as a kid.
Yeah, totally.
School. Like that's something that I think Standing Rock brought a lot of attention to, because I don't think people think that. Not the average person thinks that deeply into where their gas comes from.
Yeah.
You assume that it's transported by, train or truck or something until you find out there's all these pipelines that crisscross all over the place underground, right through all of our nature and shit.
It's intentional too. It's they don't want you to know where it's coming from.
Well, exactly. The more that we know that there's these, these hazards to our communities, the more irked we're going to be because it's our community,
So could you talk on do you know more details about this bill?
I wrote
here in Wisconsin.
I wrote down.
You got something?
Yeah, I was gonna say the fine is $10,000 fine or 6 years in jail.
And think about who that's going to affect. That's going to affect most likely low-income Indigenous people who are going to be fighting against this. Maybe even low-income white farmers up north too, and then also people who just go on up there. But that's their choice. If someone from Madison goes up there and chooses, but people who live in that area. Most of them are not these high-earning people, to be completely honest. And so,
yeah. They have their community has worked because of whatever they've done to make it work, and this is threatening that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So do you on September 20th we had a climate strike here in Madison, and we went to Madison Gas and Electric, which is a publicly traded, unfortunately, which shouldn't even be a thing with power companies in my opinion, because talk about profit mongering.
I know.
But so we went there and we protested on there. Some of us were on their property, standing on their lawn or whatever. I wonder if this bill would target those folks. Could they have gone to jail for 6 years just for simply standing on the grass of MG&E and saying "fuck oil"?
I think so.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah, because basically what it did is it made illegal something that was previously not illegal. It made that into a felony.
Yeah, exactly.
Where a state police person could then that's the fucked up thing is state police now have the authority to arrest Native people protesting on Native land.
Yeah, and this is bringing police into this is how fucked up it is. So Duluth last year, I forget the exact number, invested tens of thousands of dollars. Which is, Duluth is not a big town, in riot police in anticipation for the fact that there will be protests, and there have continued because Duluth has been kind of the center of, they have a large Native population in Duluth, and also just the surrounding area. That's where a lot of the protests go are to Duluth. And Superior, people don't know the geography. Superior is just across the river, which is the endpoint supposed to be the endpoint of the pipeline, and they're investing in those police and not actually obviously in people. And then two, what pipelines do is they develop these man camps. So think about these back in the day, when they built these these trails, like the Oregon Trail, bringing settlers out west, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's, this is the American story. Well, no, they set up these posts that, like, people, they'll operate these trading posts, which disproportionately Native women face sexual violence, and that's what these man camps are doing for pipelines as well throughout Canada and the U.S., where you transport a bunch of usually white men who are going to work on the pipeline that have no connection to the community, live in the area, and then they interact with the community usually in a violent way, and that's why you see this crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, which is a newer movement. It's not a newer issue. It's been an issue since Europeans came to the Americas, but it's been getting more coverage. There was a study in Canada, which is a totally different story that we could go do a whole hour on that. And
I remember hearing a big story about that. The large amount of Indigenous women that are kidnapped and put into the sex trade,
and then also are just like they say missing and murdered because it's like. There's so many Indigenous people women are missing that the cases aren't closed. It's just they don't know what the fuck happened, and it's because this country doesn't give a shit. There's a really good movie that it has some problematic things to it, but a movie called Wind River that I think is on Netflix, but it's it kind of talks a little bit about, it has a side story all about about this kind of these type of man camps, which happen in these types of resource extraction industries.
And that's like that's what. Like you were saying, like you bring these people from outside of the community in that don't care about the community, don't have any vested interest in its like.
It might have a lot of racist ideas coming into that community,
Yeah.
Well, the lack of like or people getting in trouble for it just reinforces folks like brazenness to want to commit crimes like that, maybe too.
And I'm sure like the police, like they. Similar to them, like they keep the people around that are gonna say yes and like comply. So like it's probably the most angry, heinous like people that they have doing it because they're the ones that are gonna believe in it the strongest.
And then you have like the whole like jurisdiction nightmare if like something like that is close by to an actual Indigenous reservation, which like. There is limited authority that the tribal government would be able to prosecute a non-native man that does that. It got a little more teeth in it in the last Violence Against Women Act, which was passed in Congress. It gave them a little bit more authority, but not nearly as much. Like, you think if you commit a crime on this land... And this is the government. They should be able to prosecute you, and they can't. Like me as a non-native guy, if I did something like that, I would be like scot free. That's fucked up.
Yeah. And meanwhile, this bill comes out.
Yeah. It further criminalizes.
Making a potentially difficult situation worse.
Yeah.
It's jacked up.
It's very, very jacked up.
Have you heard about, I guess it's changing the subject a little bit, but the Mountain Valley pipeline resistance that's happening in West Virginia? Some cool shit happening there. There's like they call it the yellowfinch tree sit. So what is it? It's been for 5 months, and that was March 4th, 2019, and it's still going on. So it's like over a year and a half.
Wow.
Or something. I heard about it on that Channel Zero Anarchist podcast network. It's something about heroes. The name of the podcast is, but they're sitting up there on like a on like a 6x6 piece of plywood up in a tree right in the middle of where like the Mountain Valley Pipeline was supposed to be built, and they've caused them like millions, if like not hundreds of millions of dollars of like from just delaying it. And they had to move the operation to the other side, and they're getting a lot of legal support, and sort of the oil or the company that's making the pipeline is sort of not been doing that great at and it's on a private property, and the person is not like a resistor who owns the property, but he's also like not helping the pipeline either. And so this one person, and I shouldn't say it's just this one person in a tree sit, because there's a camp too, and there's dozens of people doing support and showing up for protests all the time, and they had to, they were beaten up by the cops a number of times. But that's some inspiring story that I think folks haven't heard about a lot. The yellowfinch tree sit.
Yeah. And is that a place where they have a similar bill, or?
I don't.
Do you not know?
I don't think so, or I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I think a lot of those bills have been excluded to like the West and Wisconsin now.
Right. It'll be really, I mean, interesting in a bad way, I guess, to see how Wisconsin responds to this when it actually goes down. You know what I mean? Like when the construction actually, starts coming in and they start trying to do stuff, like, is really going to, I think, test our metal. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the biggest thing, is once again is the Line 3. I mean, Winona Laduke, who's from the White Earth Nation, which is Ojibwe Nation up in northern Minnesota, and also she ran for vice president, I think it was in '96, maybe on the Green Party ticket. Yeah. But she's badass. But she's just like, if they want to if Enbridge wants another Standing Rock, they can have another Standing Rock, because right now there's so much litigation, and these companies are so, they're not fucking dumb. You know what I mean?
No.
Like
they have the money.
You see, and like they like distinctly decided to reroute the pipeline not through Leech Lake reservation, which is another Ojibwe reservation up there. They went around it because they're like, okay, that's one less like jurisdiction.
Oh, yeah.
They only go technically for Line 3 through one reservation, which is the Fond du Lac reservation right outside Duluth, and who originally were for it, but now are against it, are litigating against Enbridge. But they're smart, because they don't. That's one less step they have to go through. Even though it's like, like I said earlier, it's like you have a legal challenge.
They're
on
picking
the
their
rights.
Fights.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is exactly what happened in Standing Rock.
Yeah.
The pipeline went just like a half mile outside of the Standing Rock reservation. Like, it didn't actually go through the reservation, but it went through like treaty land, of course. But like they did that intentionally, so it would be easier for them, because then they could argue, well, this isn't your land, even though you can make the legal argument like. But if they're going through reservation, that's like a legal thing. You have to at least get approval from that's why Line 5, the Bad River Reservation, has said nope, and now I think they're planning to try to go around, but it will be in the courts for a little bit, So
Yeah.
And did you end up going up to Duluth a few months ago?
I did, yeah.
With the bus from Madison?
I didn't go with the bus, but a nice little family excursion up there.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
But we went up there there's a big protest, probably a couple thousand people.
Oh, nice.
Very multiracial, led by Ojibwe women for the most part, and but definitely that's another thing about this whole struggle, is it's becoming multiracial, which is like cool, like historically antagonizing like groups coming together, like white farmers and native people, like actually coming together saying, well, this isn't in the best interest for either one of us at this point. So
yeah, definitely. I was just say, like, I think that in Wisconsin there is like I don't know, like a slight consciousness about native peoples, I guess, just because I have like different like families and friends that either are part Ojibwe or like know someone that is, you know what I mean. So I hope that goes in our favor.
Yeah, and I think I'm not from Wisconsin. Maybe you. Where are you from?
I'm from technically Indiana, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. I've noticed that. So I grew up on the East Coast. I'm like, oh, so Indiana's like the New Jersey, the armpit.
Yeah, that's actually not yeah. I always call it the south of the north.
The south of the north.
Yeah, folks got accents in Indianapolis and stuff, like Kentucky-ish accents.
Yeah.
But nothing wrong with that.
Well, I guess I asked that question is because, like, you know, like in the late 80s or mid to late 80s, there was huge, like, treaty battles in northern Wisconsin where, like, really racist bullshit, you know, like, because of treaty rights, it was upheld in courts that Ojibways were allowed to, like, continue to spearfish and everything, which is illegal for non-native people.
I think I read about
north.
that.
And so there were like there were signs in the 80s, very violent protests from settlers, basing saying like,
I think I heard about this from you.
Yeah, Oh yeah, you were at that meeting. Yeah, save a walleye spear in Indian.
Oh yeah,
shit like that.
Bad, those horrible.
There were some
bumper stickers.
or spears with like Indian heads on it. Like it just like
really,
really disgusting stuff that happened in Wisconsin in the 80s, you know, and this isn't the South in 1950s, you know.
Yeah, my mom's took me to the couple of the Walleye Wars like actions, and I remember me and my brother and sister. She had to put us in the car because it was like getting really confrontational and violent, and like the white folks had guns and shit. She was like, "Yeah, wait in this car while we do this," and then she went and did, confronted them with folks, I guess, and then she was okay, I guess. And I think those white folks ended up getting arrested that time or something.
Yeah.
I was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the deets too much, but
but the emotion, it sounds like
that was scary. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. I was exposed. I was fortunately exposed to some native culture because one of my best friends' dad was from a reservation, and very big into his Ojibwe heritage. But yeah, I hope that Wisconsin can. I don't know.
Well, I think it's better than the 80s. I mean, it's still.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
Just all of a sudden.
Well, I was
goes away.
maybe you could tell us a little bit about Standing Rock, having been there. What are some of the lessons, I guess, that you've learned there, like as far as maybe the Standing Rock, South Dakota, right?
North Dakota.
So as far as the North Dakotans, I guess besides the native population, like what were they supportive, or like what was the kind of conflict there, I guess?
Well, there's a good history behind that. So I mean, so a little background about me. I used to live and work on Pine Ridge, which is a reservation in South Dakota, kind of the epicenter where Wounded Knee happened in 1890, but also the American Indian Movement, which is a badass, radical indigenous group in the 70s. Basically the American Indian version of the Black Panther Party that took over that. Anyway, so North Dakota, just like a lot of these Western states, there's extreme amount of racism. There's disproportionate prison population for Native folks. Originally, the pipeline was supposed to go north of Bismarck, which to getting the geography straight of North Dakota, Bismarck's like in the middle of the state. It's on like the Missouri River. It's the capital of North Dakota. Standing Rock, the reservation is just south of it, which actually only part of the Standing Rock Reservation is in North Dakota. Most of it's actually in South Dakota. But originally the pipeline was supposed to go north of Bismarck, which is majority white. And then the community didn't want it. And they said, okay, cool, we're going to just go right outside Standing Rock. And I think, because they, historically, these type of industries have gotten away with anything, and they weren't expecting it. And it's kind of a perfect storm. It's like these types of pipelines happen, but like you had a couple members of the Standing Rock Nation stand up essentially, and an important historical. I'm a history teacher. Important historical thought is that Sitting Bull, one of the most famous indigenous resistors, Hunk Papa, is actually Standing Rock was like where his people went when like they actually were forced on reservations. But
wow.
so it's
even symbolically
there's a tradition of resistance of some sort. But I feel like most people, though, when I was at Standing Rock, most non-native people were not from North Dakota.
Okay.
Most people were from elsewhere. I mean, you had a lot of native people from all over the country.
Definitely.
You obviously had people from Black Lives Matter come on out. You had obviously tons of non-native folks, white folks. There was that powerful moment where I think people who used to be in the military like came on out and actually apologized.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which was very powerful. Apologized for the actions of the U.S. military. But yeah, I don't know. To be completely honest, it like the Dakotas, they're like the fucking Mississippi of the North, man. Like a lot of racism, man. I'm not like, and I know when I started, when I lived in South Dakota, I grew up on the East, understanding, black-white relations, that was it was like all of a sudden it was like native white, and it was just like, just as someone who lived on the reservation that want to like go off the reservation, like I was called like an Indian lover sometimes from people, like fucked up shit, man. Like I remember getting in a bar fight with a white dude. It's just like just had to
just over some bullshit, probably.
Yeah, right? I mean, luckily my native friends actually like calmed me down because I'm like, dude, and they're like, well, we have to deal with this shit all the time. So it's like, don't get on your high horse, Brian.
Yeah. They're like, you're hearing it now. You're gonna hear it again.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in North Dakota, also understanding that the Dakota Access Pipeline was actually coming from North Dakota. It wasn't coming from the tar sands. It was coming from the Bacon oil fields, which was western North Dakota. So, you had a lot of jobs there for people. Probably more jobs than a pipeline would give, for sure. So there's a lot of vested people in that industry in North Dakota. Then you could argue, like in Minnesota or Wisconsin, where the vested is at the tar sands, not really the pipeline. Pipelines barely give you any jobs, or give you some temporary jobs, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I remember going to a environmental journalist conference in Madison for WORT, which is a local community radio station here for the Science Channel, and they were talking about the Alberta tar sands and just kind of putting in perspective about like the amount of environmental degradation these things take, because it's like it's not like an oil field where you're pumping oil out of like a super rich reservoir of a cache of oil. It's like they have to basically like rape the land of these like cubic metric tons. This is like huge, they scrape the land for like freaking like 20 feet down, and they like, and it's like very low percentage of it actually gets turned into oil, but they have to, so it takes so much energy because they have to scrape up all this land in order to get just a tiny bit of oil, to the point where like the efficacy of it, even for profit is like barely there or whatever, and of course like the environmental degradation that it causes is like really disgusting. They were talking about like just like satellite pictures of just miles and miles of dead birds who like they would usually go there to, I don't know what you call it, roost or chill or whatever, but then there's all this nasty destroyed land with like and they just die by the millions. It's hard to grasp how fucking environmentally destructive that the Alberta tar sands oil is when compared to other sources of oil for common folks.
It's really disgusting that it's come to this, that we're at the point where we're like blasting it out in these like extremely inefficient ways. You know what I mean? Like we should have like been like planning something else for a long time before all this. You know what I mean? Because it's just it's unsustainable.
But that's not profitable.
I know. I'm talking.
I know what you're saying.
Talking logic or whatever. But
they had predictions of like peak oil have been around for many
70s.
dozens of years. Yeah, right. And so folks knew about this, planners knew about this. But the capitalist economy is so short-sighted when it comes to profit that it just doesn't give a shit.
And they're going to keep on trying to find shit. Like now, the big thing when I was in high school, so I'm like 33, like when I was in high school, it's like, oh, it's a foreign oil. We're so reliant on foreign oil. The U.S. is a net exporter of fossil fuels now. And so is Canada. Like Canada and the U.S. are just like, trying to pump out as much oil as possible, and a lot of this stuff is coming from indigenous land too, and who's getting fucked by that? Indigenous people, and obviously everyone else that has to like live in this fucking society that are breathing this air.
Yeah. And the Great Lakes, get back to the Great Lakes, they're like the biggest freshwater source on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's like the next big battle, I guess,
totally.
Like with like climate change being, ramping up more and more and more. Those Great Lakes are important.
Totally.
Well,
especially Lake Superior, which is one of the of the all the Great Lakes is like one of is the cleanest one. Is like and here you have Line 3 coming to Superior, which is on.
And doesn't it also trickle down to the other ones?
Yeah,
as far as the system goes?
Totally. They're all connected, but like Lake Superior is like the cleanest one, and I think one of the Ojibwe call them Gitchigami, and that's been the big thing is protect Gitchigami, and because these pipelines are going right there, and I have an aunt that lives in the UP, and that Line 5 would go right near them, and they live right on Superior,
and like as someone that used to go to Lake Michigan all the time as a kid, every summer me and my family go to Lake
Indiana.
Michigan. Well, this was actually, I have a lot of Illinois friends, or Illinois family too. We're all around Michigan. But, we used to go to Lake Michigan every summer, and there got to be a point where I don't know what pollution it was, but at some point it just got to be just so gross at Lake Michigan. You didn't really want to go there
especially
much
with Chicago and Milwaukee. It's like all the industry there.
And it's like it smells, and there's weird color to it, and blah blah blah, and it's not the same lake that I grew up with. And it would be a real shame if that happened to all the Great Lakes.
Yeah, that's jacked up.
Yeah.
What about Wet'suwet'en resistance?
Oh, yeah.
You know about that? Does that have anything to do with Great Lakes, or is that sort of not?
It doesn't have to do with Great Lakes, but it has to do with pipeline resistance.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right.
Well, because the Wet'suwet'en and the other nation, it starts with a U. I don't want to butcher the name. But so that's up in British Columbia.
Okay.
And
I'm sure.
Oh, that's quite a ways away. Eh?
Yeah, it is. But it's important because what's interesting about British Columbia, that part of Canada, they never signed any treaties.
Yeah.
So it's it was in the Supreme Court of British Columbia in the 90s. They said, these nations have access to this land, are allowed to this land, and so I think it's a liquid natural gas, but I forget the name of the it's Coastal Link or something like that. That is the pipeline company that is going through. There's been for about over a year of blockades. Sometimes just actual physical barriers, because this is in the middle of nowhere, northern British Columbia.
Oh, okay.
And the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they came out in the Guardian that they talked about possibly shooting some of these resistors, really fucked up shit, because they did remove some, but it's it's still in the courts, as well as actually confrontational battles and everything. And this is the nice Trudeau government up in Canada,
Yeah.
Canadian Obama.
Yeah.
who lost or whatever. But I hear there's.
But he's still the prime minister.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just what did they call them? The liberals, right?
Yeah. He's a part of the Liberal Party. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear there's calls to action for
Wet'suwet'en.
I remember hearing calls to action for Wet'suwet'en folks like 1 week ago or something. Renewed ones, for folks to join.
Yeah, because they've been under some pressure and everything like that. Yeah, and
Wet'suwet'en.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
Check out the Red Nation podcast. They actually had one of the hereditary chiefs on recently.
Okay.
From that nation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can find that on all the major podcast channels.
Yeah, I believe on Apple, on SoundCloud or whatever. Is it SoundCloud? I forget all these names.
Well, I think you have to do it separate, but yeah.
I think you can get it on Apple. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
You can post it on SoundCloud, then it'll go to Apple too. But anyways, yeah. If you have like the premium account, but it's called the Red Nation podcast.
Yeah, the Red Nation podcast.
All right,
yep,
cool.
Yep. They also had like a solidarity statement for them on their website.
Okay,
recently.
bet.
Yeah. I would say I've never even thought about like the Canada side protesting.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah,
They're ones they were doing it before. Like we got all like Keystone XL, Dakota Access Pipeline. Like they the Indigenous resistance. They had this whole movement in like I guess it was around 2012ish. Like it was called Idle No More. And like kind of all this stuff that's happening on this side of the border kind of stems a little bit from that. It was like this renewed movement in Canada, Canadian First Nations that were fighting because there was this bill that before Trudeau came to what was his name? God, shoot. This conservative guy,
the guy right before Trudeau?
basically the George Bush of Canada. He.
So wait, does that mean that Trump's next for Canada?
Yeah, maybe, you never know. He passed a bill trying to deregulate a lot of waterways and make it changes to the Indian Act up there, which regulates the relationship between First Nations. And I use Indian because that's what it's called, Indian Act, between First Nations and the Canadian government. They've been. I mean, they're also much bigger. They're like 5% of the population up there, where your Indigenous people are like 1%.
So we mentioned Evers as a Democrat who sort of is helping, squash the resistance. And then, so what about can you talk about Obama and how he sort of helped, the fucking North Dakota access pipipeline.
Well, it's so interesting. So I also a little bit about me. I got arrested in front of the White House.
Oh damn!
About
that's
the Keystone,
place to be
the Keystone XL pipeline. So that's the precursor to the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Okay.
People started to organize around it. It was coming from the tar sands, going through South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, all that stuff.
During Obama, you got arrested?
During Obama, yes.
Yeah.
And it was, because they were calling on Obama to, hey, because it was coming across the Canadian border, there needs to be federal oversight, not just state, which Dakota Access Pipeline technically didn't need federal stuff, but he was he was forced to kind of say, okay, we're gonna do some kind of environmental impact study, which kind of delayed the Keystone XL pipeline until Trump came into. But he was forced to on the Dakota Access.
One of those meaningless gestures.
Yeah, well,
it's whether Trump or Hillary gets in, it's.
But it was a win because he was forced to do that. It wasn't
that's true.
He could have done it.
Right.
Way before, because people spoke out, and the same thing happened with the Dakota Access Pipeline. He was kind of dragging his feet because where the encampment was at Standing Rock was technically was at the Army Corps of Engineers land, and so technically the federal government had some say of some sort, and he was finally forced to, I think, in the winter. It was I think it was after the election that he finally said, or maybe it was right before.
It was right.
Maybe it was right before,
but it was very, very close.
It took. I mean, definitely something he could have spoken out, but there are tons of times where he was just like, "Well, we need to see both sides."
Yeah, I remember thinking that it was too little, too late.
Yeah.
I mean, like. Because it was just, like you said, like he could have said something like way earlier, and it would have had an impact.
Here's the fucked up
bigger
thing.
Impact,
So here's the fucked up thing. I'm connecting it full circle.
Right.
He also earlier in his administration went to Standing Rock and visited the tribe and had a whole ceremony and everything with the tribe, and showing their support for him and him actually meeting people there. So it's not like he didn't. Like, he knew people there. Like, he went there and, had maybe whether, it's a political connection, whatever. Like, it's not, like, just completely out of his fucking mind. Like, he went there and actually, talked out of one side of his mouth saying, I'm doing this. And, he had some support from different, people in the Native community, but we have to understand, every community is not monolithic. So,
Exactly.
Strong liberal tradition of pipeline support, basically.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's
Trudeau to Evers.
It wasn't even till recently that they stopped, like maybe started to like resist a little bit, mainly because of pressure, because like people have been speaking out against it. I mean, Trudeau, they bought Kinder Morgan, like they nationalized this pipeline called Kinder Morgan that was going through Indigenous land, and so now the Canadian government owns a pipeline that is going. Same shit. Yeah, exactly. It's not even a private company; it's the Canadian government doing it.
And I think that part of the way that people maybe make themselves like feel better about this sort of thing is by buying like Teslas and electric cars.
Oh, don't get me up! Go get me started.
Well, you know what I mean. Like that's like one of those things where like. Yes, we were all aware of like Standing Rock, like we all were made aware of Standing Rock, but like it's like the last since Standing Rock, the way that people exercise that kind of like opinion is like by buying into a new industry.
Well, and it's like I'm gonna do something that blows your mind.
Yeah. What, the limited resource?
No, just it would kind of, it's just like we're in a capitalist system, so it's like maybe oil will fall out of favor, but what resource will come into favor? So people may or may not know that there was a coup in Bolivia recently. So Bolivia had a president, Evo Morales, who we could talk about all the different things that maybe he should or shouldn't have done, whatever. He won fair. Another election, and we could say there were some things that leading up to it that people argued that he shouldn't have run, but he won fair and square. And then he was ousted by a right-wing government, a right-wing coup. You know what resource Bolivia has a lot of? Lithium, which is one of the they have one of the largest deposits of lithium.
That's the one. And I'm not, I've not heard yet.
I'm not getting like conspiratorial, but there's no coincidence that Tesla has there was before that there was the Bolivian government was under pressure from people like Bolivian people saying. Not to mention, like Evo Morales is indigenous, and Bolivia is a majority indigenous country. Was nationalizing some fields in the area of lithium, and going back on some contracts that they had. And once again, not getting conspiratorial, but the thing is, capital will do what it can to get what it needs.
Yeah. Well, that's like the next.
And so Tesla, even saying even that idea, which is like good in nature. You know what I mean? Someone doing that. I'm not saying like, oh, you're a horrible person.
It's cool that the technology is being worked on. You know what I mean? And being made more efficient or whatever.
It should be nationalized.
That was a newly discovered resource too, relatively in Bolivia. So it's like
totally.
Why didn't these things happen before? But also, were you aware that electric vehicles have a larger carbon footprint on the environment than hybrid vehicles do because of the fact that our power grid is so reliant on fossil fuels?
Yeah,
so it's like
comes full circle again.
So these things aren't.
We have to that's the thing. That's the thing about like green change into like renewable energy is like you need to work on all of the renewable energies at the same time.
Right.
It's like
you can't just pick one.
It's such a systematic issue. Like
Yeah.
Liam just said, like this whole idea that our grid is not even remotely renewable whatsoever. It's like you plug, I plug in my cell phone. I'm not thinking much about it, but it's probably using some like partial coal, if anything, if not all coal.
Yeah, we have huge coal power plants here in Madison.
Yep.
And then that reminds me of like the Green New Deal. Want to bring up that about like because I know DSA might support one. I'm not sure if they do or not.
Well, that's definitely like the hot topic.
Oh yeah,
well, that was a group too,
now.
right?
Yeah.
Like a Green New Deal group that you were run in town.
Yeah, so there's this group here in Madison, but part of something bigger called People's Green New Deal.
Yeah,
and so the Red Nation. So I'm gonna put two things out there. There's the People's Green New Deal, and the Red Nation also has a thing called the Red Deal.
Okay,
which like both kind of go on trying to push the Green New Deal further to the left.
Right.
Trying to say, hey, we need to not just talk about, we need to have job training, we need all this stuff, but we need to transform our, economic model, but obviously our resource model at the same time. And how do we use that language of a New Deal, which we could talk historically how unfair the New Deal was, it was good for some people, bad for some other, unfair to other people, but the whole idea of a massive kind of investment of transforming the economy, I think is a good slogan, because right now people just say the Green New Deal.
Well, yeah,
what the fuck do they mean?
It's something to rally behind.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's a nice hot thing to kind of talk about and but yeah, it is kind of a nebulous kind of thing too,
which is both good and bad. It could be molded to these, maybe I'm sure. Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure Joe Biden's Green New Deal,
right?
I think that's a good idea.
Did it come up in debates? Even maybe not. Right?
No, I mean,
Bullshit.
I think some people bring up the climate crisis, but it's not an intentional what do you think about the Green New Deal? But
I haven't watched much. I haven't watched the debates.
I watched some of the early ones, and it's just the same shit.
No.
I like it when it's whittled down a little bit, maybe. But
so what's the difference between the Red Nation and
the Red New
and
Deal,
the People's DSAs or whatever?
So to be clear, the People's Green New Deal isn't part of the DSA per se.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
right.
I mean, if we want to get logistically, we're developing a working group, obviously here in Madison. But the People's Green New Deal kind of spurred out of a group called Science for the People.
Okay.
Which was a group of radical scientists back in the day in the 70s, and now it's kind of been revamped, and it's a magazine as well. I'm writing for the next article,
Nice.
Issue about Indigenous knowledge, Western science, and how they're conflict anyways, but that's cool.
Yeah.
But so that whole it kind of is a little bit more encompassing, in the sense of saying trying to bring in all the people to the table, where the Red Deal is and they'll openly say, the Red Nation will openly say this it's a communist project. It's
nice.
it's how do we overturn the existing order, but also not be poo-poo the Green New Deal. You know what I mean? The Green New Deal is good, but we need, their whole thing is we need to center Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous liberation at the center, and understanding that Indigenous liberation is for liberation for all. Because the whole idea is if we're talking more broadly, it's how do we not silo the way Western culture does, silo different ideas and different things. It's how do we actually interact with these things? It's intentional that I should go to the grocery store and not know where the fuck anything comes from. That's intentional. They don't they don't want me to know where things are, how things are produced. It's that alienation piece where it's if I knew, maybe that would be different. You know what I mean? If people knew, or people had a connection to the land, or to just anything that is remotely around them, they would maybe be, would be a different. You have a different investment of some sort.
Yeah. Buy local. Shop local, guys. Support local everything.
Or at least know where the fuck things can.
Yeah. Know your local shit.
I'll buy
you know what I mean? Like, just know local.
Buy some Zapatista coffee and shit.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't grow coffee here.
Yeah, exactly, man.
But
I need my coffee.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, I'm not sure if that really answered. They're both like just radical programs that are kind of like radical critiques of the Green New Deal.
I got you.
Yeah. And like I like what you said about like, not just like poo-pooing on the Green New Deal, but actually like trying to, create some kind of like dialogue or criticism of it.
Well, because it's important. Like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like she introduced the Green New Deal. She went to Standing Rock, like that. That informed some of her thinking around this. Not, it needs to go further, but like that's important to understand some kind of the origins around that too.
Well, that's red.
One thing that I've learned about through shit posting on the internet is that if you really do want to have like a constructive like conversation with like someone about like any of these topics, you have to put aside your anger or whatever and be like, just give them information. You know what I mean? Just be,
it's like the art of politics,
patient and give them information and not like feed into like the troll stuff or whatever,
Yeah, TikTok is really bad for that. I'm on TikTok.
So I just have to say, I had no idea what the fuck TikTok was until I became a high school teacher.
Oh, nice.
It's super popular these days.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And then they show me, my kids show me, like, oh yeah, watch this, Mr. Ward, blah, blah, blah.
There's slowly a political far left TikTok
you were telling me about
formed community, so
nice.
And I'm part of it or whatever. Not huge, but I'm in there.
Yeah, it's cool that that's a thing. Like just these 1 minute videos are like there's political discussion happening through that.
And you get lots of trolls. And it's funny because when I was talking about critiquing Obama, that's like a common like far right trope. What about Obama? Blah, 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 Obama, blah blah blah. This because you're like like as if my analysis stops at Trump.
Totally.
I have a critique of the whole entire system.
Exactly.
So, not to be confused.
They just assume just because you're on the left, you're like an Obama show.
Well, that's like I used to have those conversations with my dad, who's conservative. He's kind of like eased up these days, but like he would say, "I'm like, Dad, I don't give a shit about Obama."
Yeah, right.
Obama. It's like when someone brings up like Hillary to like discredit like the left or something. It's like, what are you talking about?
My favorite thing back in the day when they would call, they would say, "Oh, Obama's a socialist." I said, "Dude, if Obama was a socialist, I'd probably be happier."
Yeah,
I was about to say, like, I wish he was extreme as you guys were saying he is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and then just how that sort of rhetoric has become, more incorporated into the far right is huger now too. It's larger nowadays. Yep. And so this anti-Obama rhetoric is like really, especially when they have talking about immigration stuff, like my song "Fuck ICE" and things like that.
Yeah.
But okay, here's one
fuck
more.
ICE.
Yeah, for real. Fuck ICE for sure. Here's one more subject I wanted to get to, which is because we were talking about like working groups for the DSA, and like I'm in Madison Tenant Power, which is
cool.
Yeah, it's like a tenant union that's like a working group of the DSA, which is really rad. We're having some trouble getting off the ground, but we've got a lot of good ideas, and a lot of folks keep coming around. It's growing. We're meeting consistently. We just had like a Know Your Rights workshop. Not many like tenants came to it, but we turned it into like a how do you build a tenant union kind of workshop.
I would say like that's something like my brother could have used like a couple years ago when he was trying to like figure out the apartment stuff.
He was trying to do tenant organizing.
Well, no. Well, was that anything to do with housing or anything?
Yeah.
Like he was
against landlords.
I was gonna say he was having trouble because he had like a partial eviction that was following him around, even though he didn't actually get evicted. He had a partial eviction thing that was following him around and making it so he couldn't get an apartment anywhere.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
So he ended up having to go with the people that initially did this to him.
Oh my God.
But that's something that like my brother could have totally used at that moment.
Right,
like just some advice.
Yeah. And we work with Tenant Resource Center, and they're a good advice body. But then you were talking about the People's Green New Deal, which is like loosely associated with DSA.
Yeah, I think tomorrow we're supposed to vote on as a working group
in the DSA meeting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll happen. And then are you in any other DSA groups?
No, so that's you were
doing a reading group, right? Weren't you?
Yeah, I was doing a reading group
Yeah.
on Nick Estes's book was Our History is the Future.
Yeah.
Which is about indigenous resistance from colonial periods to now. But and I'm somewhat like loosely was involved in like the eco-socialist like national working group. Like I'm on there like on what's that thing called? Slack. That's it. Slack.
Right.
Yeah. And like been like on there basically being the guy like, hey, what about indigenous issues? What about indigenous issues?
Fred.
But it's cool. That's kind of slowed down since the convention.
Slack like the group.
Well, no, like it's like a
listserv type
of communication forum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. I'm on too many of them right now. So
yeah, I'm on one.
Is this internet forums or?
Yeah, and it's an app too.
Yeah.
Nice.
I go online on my browser.
Oh, there's an app.
So it's like this here. See, so it's like I'm part of these different.
It's a good communication tool. For sure.
Yeah,
for
you
organizing.
can
it's kind of like the signal group for some of the.
But you can have a lot more different conversations.
So you can have different channels and everything
at
like
once.
that. Yeah.
So
I like that.
I was last time I was talking about, or at the DSA meeting, I was talking about doing a DSA podcast.
Yeah.
Do you think that'd be a good idea?
I think that'd be a good idea. I like the DSA here a lot. I think there's a lot of things that there's a lot of good people, and there's a lot of more things that it could do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And project, especially with I think Dana and others have put together that newsletter, which looks awesome.
Yeah,
like,
what's it called again?
Oh, nice.
It's called Red Madison.
Yeah, okay.
Like we could have a podcast called Red Madison.
Yeah, that just maybe not reads the
No,
newsletter, but talks
like,
about the subject.
Yeah, like have
would
the
work.
same kind of marketing and everything.
Well, because like red, Badger's red too.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah,
and then that could be like the notes on what to discuss in the podcast that month or whatever it is.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
So maybe I'll bring that up again. See, the only thing is I don't know that I have capacity to centralize that.
I mean, that's the thing. Like with the DSA too. Like there are all sorts of things I think they should do, but I'm like I don't have the time. Or like I have a hard time asking for it when I can't do it.
That's what it always comes down to, right?
Yeah,
with
especially
local,
got a 1-year-old
with
now.
community activism, like you always have to. You always run into the thing where it's like, all right, I have to be responsible with my time.
Yeah,
I have
a 1-year-old now, so it's like I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
activism ain't easy, dude. That's something that like people don't. If you haven't been involved in activism, like it's it's like taking a college course or like. It's very involved.
Yeah.
So
the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, who's in here and has a presence in town, they pay my sister to babysit at all their meetings.
That's
and
awesome.
I know, like,
nice.
I wasn't exactly cool with anybody watching my kid when they were 1 either, so I understand if that's the case, but I think that would be cool. And for the DSA to do as well, just have childcare, not like an ISO where it was like, oh, pass a hat because I had to pay for childcare, like have childcare there every time.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
So they pay my sister even when there's no kids
that's
just
nice.
to come.
Yeah.
It's like $20 an hour or whatever, but we have the same thing in the IWW. That's like in our bylaws or whatever nowadays. But we've been not doing that great a job at having that. But
I think that would be great. I mean, also it's interesting like being a parent now. Like, you know, I feel like shit in the thing. I've been an activist for years, and like intellectually you understand the shit that parents go through, and you're like, now you're one, you're like, oh fuck, nothing is set up for parents. You know what I mean? Like to make it easy, whether it's like childcare or whether that there are meetings at like 7:30 when like little ones go to bed. Like I know it's different when they're a little bit older, but like I know like tomorrow we're gonna bring Leonard to the meeting. His bedtime's at 7, so we'll see how it goes.
I remember the first time that I saw Liam actually was when he came into an ISMO meeting. He was a little late, but like he came in, you had both of your kids with you. And because like you were like rushing from your last thing to this thing, and like I was immediately like impressed with the fact that like, man, like, this is so important to this guy that, like, he brought both of his kids. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So I have to say this to you, Liam. So as a new parent, I'm sorry that if I had expectations in the ISO for you and Amy with kids that I didn't fully understand. Now that I understand. Anyway, that's a total.
Well, having kids changes everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just changes your thinking.
Yeah, it gives you materialize something practical or something that you can actually grasp onto and feel as far as analysis around nuclear families and isolation and alienation and
gender roles.
Monogamy as nuclear families as like a structure to fucking, for rich people to hand down wealth and for poor folks to keep them alienated simultaneously,
isolated,
and the commons, like there's no commons, like and then why is it so? Like, I don't know, like you get a lot of, there's this whole trend of folks like, oh, I don't like kids. I don't want to have to hear their crying or whatever, which is really bullshit and just adds to the alienation and the isolation.
Yeah. As I'm getting older, I'm having more friends that complain about that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's like, cause I have a lot of friends that don't have kids. You know?
And so it's interesting. So do I. And then I'm sure it's like, and so they don't, a lot of people don't understand, having kids. It's interesting though. I have a friend who, Haley, who's in the DSA. She was formerly in the ISO. She was saying to me like, I want to like be around kids because I don't want to have kids, but I also people who don't have kids are isolated from even like remotely understanding having children. And so like it's for her, it's important to be around kids. So I want to, it's not just because I don't want kids doesn't mean I don't want to maybe be around them and like try to like help one out or something like that.
Well, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and that really helps me because like that kind of has helped me kind of get into that mindset. Just like, because just talking to my nieces and nephews, like they're, with respect and, being that adult in their life that will like really listen to what they have to say, because that is very important for kids to have, just, positive adult interactions like that are, treating them like, regular people, because that's what a kid wants more than anything is to be like, talked to with respect.
No doubt. And it also makes it stark how the nuclear family sort of really, really takes away from the sense of community because it's like it's your responsibility and your family to raise the kids and like and then like there's some spaces where it's like. Yeah, you get looks for bringing your kid in there when it's supposed to be like a lefty organizing space, and that just like really goes a long way at reinforcing the nuclear family and like like destroying the ability to have a community because kids need to be accepted. So that's the thing. It's like even without a babysitter, folks you should be able to bring your kids and they should be able to scream and cry and if like folks who are revolutionary got a problem with it, they need like a good talking
and you know what
there was this moment. This is a funny thing that happened. So I went to see so my partner Kate and I went to see Ada Deer, who is Menominee. She's she was involved in American Indian activism. Yeah. But she also then worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. That you could talk about her. Anyways, she's a very inspiring person. She's from Wisconsin. Went to go see her at one of those nice fancy places in Union South, one of those auditoriums. Yeah. So we brought Leonard, our son, who's named after Leonard Peltier. So this is important. Yeah. American Indian activist and political prisoner. Free Peltier. So we go there, and he's a pretty calm baby. He's like making and like some person gives us a look, and then with this old woman who's like kind of the usher, she's like, if you want, you could take him out a little bit. And it's like, oh my god, it was like this woman picked the wrong people. We were like, are you telling us that we need to leave? Well, so you're not telling us to leave, so we're not going to leave. And I'm like, he's named after Leonard Peltier. I'm like going at it, I mean, we stay there, but it was just like, but it was like we're here because we want to incorporate these ideas to our child.
Yeah.
Because these are important. Even though he's only one, whatever, but like this is something we want to normalize in his life, and it's like, and we're being pushed out.
By ostensible lefties.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not enough. There really isn't that much political education around, the nuclear family and the commons and
no,
things like that
it's something, especially as if you're like a single person in your like 20s or something. It's
you can do everything every night.
Something that comes up a lot, in your mind.
Right, no doubt.
But yeah, it's so vastly important. That's why that is part of the reason that like churches thrive. Like it's once a week where like parents can take their kids for essentially free daycare.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Point.
Yeah. For
like
at least a couple hours.
The churches become the commons. I mean, that's thinking historically, like where like the U.S. hasn't had these type of public resources, and churches have filled those consistently.
Yeah, especially in like rural areas.
Exactly.
Where there's not really leftist spaces.
Yeah. Or public
true,
services at the same time too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's why it is really important that on the left we get on that, on the page with that, because like that will bring more people into movements.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I want to go try to catch the gym before. It
yeah, right.
I definitely could probably talk for a lot longer, but
of course.
We got like an hour and a half of material.
Yeah, look at that.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that was not the smoothest exit, but whatever. But yeah, do you?
Liam's got to go to the gym.
So let's do plugs. Should we do plugs?
Plugs. That's not bad.
Do you got any plugs, like things that folks should come to or look into, like?
Well, I mentioned the Red Nation podcast.
Yeah,
people should do that. People should listen to that. Other things, if they're looking to understand Canadian politics on the from an Indigenous perspective, another podcast called Media Indigena.
Okay,
that's a pretty good
Media
one.
Nice.
I think maybe those are my only plugs. Yeah, I feel weird. I usually have more plugs.
That's all right.
I don't think I'll get this out in time for the DSA meeting tomorrow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we got one in Madison.
It's okay. People would be like, oh, wow, that's coming up, isn't it?
2 hours.
Yeah, right.
But I can think of Madison Tenant Power if folks are interested in doing tenant organizing in town. December 5th, 7 p.m. at the Central Library. And then February 8th, we're having the bail fund, the Free the 350 bail fund. We're having a concert fundraiser with hip hop. February 8th starts at 8 p.m. at Art Inn in Madison on East Washington. Come check that out.
I'll do one more plug.
Yeah, for sure.
Now that I have, so People's Green New Deal, Madison, which is a group that I helped start. That is also hopefully going to be a working group of the DSA as well. Meets every other week. So the next meeting will be February 6th at 7 p.m. at Barrique's on Atwood, so on the east side of Madison. We just kind of small group trying to be a radical eco-socialist pull to the Madison environmental movement.
Nice.
And I, as usual, got my Rolling Stone podcast, my improv comedy stuff. Season 2 is out now. And I have the album Concept Hour. If you haven't checked that out yet, check that out. We're just talking about music and, concept albums and having a lot of fun doing it. So, those are my plugs.
Right on. Do those come out at a certain time of the week?
Every
day?
Or the album Concept Hour comes out every other Monday.
Got you. That's good to have a schedule.
Yep. Yeah. We got some backed up episodes, and I think the next one coming out for after this is released will be Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of the Seventh Son.
Nice.
And the album before that was My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade. So those are the two most recent episodes.
One of my guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
I got another guest lined up for a Lil Guillotine podcast that
nice.
Should be dope. So you'll start pumping these out again. Something that's fun.
Yeah. I'm down.
So yeah, thanks for joining us, y'all. Peace out to is it Twitter? Yeah, y'all are Twitter. And this is Facebook over here.
Yeah.
Or no. It's Facebook and it's YouTube. Yep. Excuse me.
YouTube, Facebook.
Peace out, YouTube and Facebook.
Thanks for watching, y'all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thanks.
Yeah.